Peter Hatter, Positions and Practice, Oral Presentation, My Photographic Practice. During this presentation, I will hope to convey my journey as a photographer and how influences of identity have shaped my photographic practice throughout my career as a photographer. Growing up in the 80s and 90s, I was in awe of people such as Madonna and Alexandra McQueen, and I would look in gasp at subcultures of punks and to see how they changed their identity when media depicted them in a certain light, or how they came out fighting, so to speak. Madonna with her sex book, which a lot was inspired by Cindy Sherman. Alexandra McQueen with the controversy that he courted around all of his fashion shows, and how he was labelled a misogynistic man who would depict women in horrible lights. It got me to looking at exploring my own identity, and something that I have looked at over the years. Then looked at trying to create a 365 project where I took a portrait of myself every day. I did this initially for a month to see how many different ways I could put myself in it. This is a selection of myself. I feel self-portraits can make you somewhat vulnerable to how people are going to see you. You open yourself up to criticism with the way you look and what you do and how you sound. It gave rise for me to start experimenting with post-processing within my photography and how I could change them, how I could create a persona. I then started looking at how I could use avant-garde looks within my photography, creating a persona or a mask for my models and subjects to wear, be it through makeup or through my own career as a hairdresser. I was able to do pretty much most of the styling myself. Although these portraits didn't work as they should have, they were quite blown out. I didn't compensate for the makeup that they were wearing, but this was my first attempt at it, and it was a work in progress. But it was what I call a happy accident to create something like this. It was a triptych of a set of images that I liked. But that then made me look a little bit further into photographers that I liked. So I started looking within Annie Leibovitz's work. She'd influenced Clay Cook and Katerina Plotnikova in the way that she lit her subjects. In particular, in the Disney Dream portraits, she used light and her editing post-processing skills to tell the story, such as the forests within the images were always a little bit darker and the clothes were oversaturated, something that again I liked from the Tim Palin collection that he did with the Hunger Games. It was echoed again in Katerina Plotnikova's work with using the whole Beauty and the Beast themes. And Clay Cook, I have a love for his work in the fact that he uses a single light source a lot of the time to create epic portraits. Led me on to look at creating cinematography in my own photography, how I could create a mood and how I could emulate some of the looks maybe that Annie Leibovitz had created for some of her shots. Again, I styled all of the images myself, and although I do like the whole collaborative style of it, I feel that these images worked really well in telling a story. They were to show a bit of abandonment. I used films as references and TV series such as The Walking Dead as inspiration for this shoot, to create a final look of almost an anticipation of something that was going to happen, much like Gregory Crewdson. That shoot then led me on to looking at gender identity within society. For years and years, we have looked at fashion as a way of reinforcing gender roles in society and focusing on the biological sex to encourage individuals to act in their gender stereotypes. Designers such as Coco Chanel and Alexandra McQueen have broke down the barriers of clothing restricting women from acting within a certain way, making them more of an equal counterpart to the male sex and not objectifying them. Both designers had a strong sense of empowering women and wanted to see them as strong individuals and not as society had encouraged us to believe. Another person that looked at gender was Nan Goldin. As we know, gender fluidity has been a popular subject since 2017, but going further back than that, Golding was somewhat of a trailblazer, documenting the sexual genders of society. She would photograph drag queens dressing for their performances in New York's East Village. She would also was accused of glamorizing the heroin chic movement because she would photograph emaciated young girls. But she saw this as more of a diary of the times of how she was, or the time she was living in. Another aspect of reinforcing gender was within fairy tales. Now, for generations, fairy tales have been used to reinforce gender roles, but as society has changed, these favourite stories have had to change. The original fairies were intended to educate girls in ways of domestication and to reinforce the ideas of them being respectable and attractive, according to Baker Sperry in the Greer House 2003. Fairy tales have played a significant role in how we reinforce gender stereotypes with children in society. And Disney has, for the last years, reinforced that as a vital role. With the release of Snow White, they helped to reinforce the fact that women should go back and work at home to take care of their families after the Great Depression. It's only of recent years that they have started to involve free-spirited characters with their male counterparts as an equal. This can be seen in Merida, Anna, and Elsa's in the Disney films that they've released. So with my final piece of work, I wanted to create something that kind of flipped that on its head. And here's one of the images that I created. This is to tell the story of the Princess and the Frog. But what if the princess was a prince? And what if the prince was suffering from a gender identity crisis? It completely changed the way a fairy tale would look and what it could be doing. It gives light to a new version. Society has changed, so why are we therefore telling the same stories? Is it something that will become acceptable? The same with the the Sleeping Beauty adaptation, and made Sleeping Beauty a man. Again, is this something that is acceptable and something that we would look at? Throughout my research project, this is something that I want to look in a little bit further and see how far gender is pushed within society and how we would look for the stories that we would tell as a community.